everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to go over all the books that I read in Japanese, which is basically all the books that I read for my book club. So basically this video is titled the books, that I read for my book club, but it does include one that I read by myself because I'd started other books, to be honest, that were non-part of the book club, but I never finished them because of reasons. Not because of not enjoyment, just because that's the way I am with my reading. I like to not finish books for no apparent reason. But yeah, I wanted to go over all the books that I read this year, which are right here. So, which is 11 books. So very, very excited. The book club, which is basically a club that my friend and I started, basically December of 2021, she wanted to read a book in Japanese, and she wanted me to help her find one. And so we were at the bookstore together, and I was looking at books that were in her reading level, and basically I just suggested, hey, why don't we read this book together? And we did, and we had a lot of fun with it. And so we decided to continue that in the new year by creating this book club. So this is an American friend of mine, and she has a reading level lower than me. But yeah, we decided to do that. And then my friend, who is native Japanese, but he likes to read, and he wanted to use this as an excuse to read more and to see what we were reading, and that was really fun. So he decided to join. So now it's a book club of us 3 people, and we have a little, chatting group, and we talk with one another. And yeah, so I just wanted to go over those books with you guys today. So we ended up reading 10 books together as a book club. We had to skip 1 month over the summer because my friend was falling behind because she was taking the JLPT. So because of that, we decided, hey, we'll just skip this month. Don't worry about it. And then December, we were going to read First Crush, but the reading level was a little difficult. So I suggested that we abandon it. Because basically what happens is that I check the difficulty level of every book before we read it, to make sure that my friend can read it. And this is the only book that I forgot to do that, because what happened is that my friend had suggested this book, and I was perfectly fine with the suggestion. I just needed to review the difficulty level, but I couldn't find it anywhere. She had found it in a used bookstore, but I just couldn't find it. And by the time, I told her after a few months looking, I'm like, hey, I can't find this book anywhere. And she said, oh, well, it just came out in paperback. Could have told me that a little bit beforehand, thank you. But yeah, okay, she told me it finally came in paperback. And so in my head, I forgot about the review process, and I just bought it. I was like, okay, hey, let's make it our December pick. And she's like, yeah, awesome. So I forgot to check the reading difficulty. And of course, the one book I forgot to check the reading difficulty, it was too hard. So we ended up abandoning it. So we read 10 out of the 12 original books intended for the year. But that's fantastic. I think that's absolutely amazing. Like, I read one Japanese book in 2021 to all of a sudden read 10 for a book club, and then an 11th book, for me, that's absolutely fantastic. So let me, I could have done this in the order that we read them, but I don't know if that's gonna work. So because I don't really remember. Let's see if I can. So we did Tsumetome in January by Ikuni Kaori. Not Ikuni Kaori, that's definitely not the name. Fujino Kaori, and this actually is getting translated this year in 2023 as Nails and Eyes. So we read Tsumetome, which was it won the Akutagawa Prize. So this was my nominee. So we read that in January. February, we read my friend's nominee, Unbalance by Kato Chie. We read that in February. Then I believe we read this next, I think, Natsu no Niwa, The Friends. And then we read Eki ni Tomaro, which is Let's Stay at This Station. Then we read, I think this one, Omokage, which was an Akutagawa Prize nominee, not a winner, but a nominee. And then I really don't remember the order, so let's just go in my pile. We read Yoru no Bake Mono, At Night I Become a Monster by Sumino Yoru. We read Colorful by Mori Eto. we read Hagu to Nagara by Harada Maha. Then we read Gangu Shurisha by Kobayashi, and I forget how to read this person's first name every single time. Kobayashi Yasumi. So Kobayashi Yasumi. So we read this, which is a little horror, true horror short stories. We read this for October, for the gloomy October reading. And then we read花束は毒, which was our 11th, the November reading pick by Origami Kyo Ya, which is a mystery. And then as I mentioned, we abandoned our December pick, which was The First Crush. And then on my own, I read Mura Saki no Scato no Onna, so the lady in the purple skirt, by Imamura Natsuko. So let's go through all of these. Tsumetome was an Akutagawa Prize winning book about this woman who speaks in a false second person narrative. So she's talking about you, what you did, but you is not the reader. You is her sort of like mother-in-law, and she's basically telling the story about when she was a child and when this woman came into her life and their interaction. And this is basically horror mixed with everyday like the story of like social obligations in Japan. And this was fascinating. I absolutely loved this. I really thought it was amazing. Unbalanced, I also thought was amazing. I was actually quite surprised by this book. It's about this woman who discovers that her husband has had an affair, and she gets very angry, and she doesn't understand how he can have this affair with this woman, because this woman is quite ugly, to be frank. She's got a, she's fat, she doesn't have the latest fashion, her leather bag is peeling, her makeup is smeared all over her face, like she is like 10 years older than her husband, and she's wondering how her husband could have sexual relations with this woman when she herself has only had sex with her husband twice in their entire marriage, or in their entire relationship, because he has said that he basically is impotent. He just cannot have sex. And so she goes down the spiral thinking, how is this happening? Why is this happening? And it's not what you expect, because the thing is, like, it turns out her husband was a victim of sexual abuse as a child by an older woman. And him being with this woman is sort of a representation of that. So this goes in a direction you really, really wouldn't expect, because you don't typically hear about sexual abuse of men and the repercussions that come from that. So this was a fantastic story that explores that, and this wife who has to deal with all of this, basically. So I thought that this was actually quite a good story, Unbalanced. Then there was Natsu no Nima, The Friends, which has been translated into English as The Friends, although in English it's marketed as children's literature, so you probably haven't heard of it unless you have children, maybe yourself. But this isn't really children's literature. An adult can read this perfectly fine. It's about 3 young boys who one summer decide to spy on their elderly neighbor who they suspect is going to die soon, and basically they want to know what it's like to see a dead body, basically. But instead they form a relationship with this old man and end up having a really wonderful summer. And it's just a really a beautiful tale of friendship, and it explores the ideas of the role of elderly in Japan in a world where they have no one to take care of them anymore. And this just really goes through a lot of stuff. So we really loved this one. We also read, so again, Eki ni Tomaro, which was really cute. It's kind of like live, love, pray, love, laugh, pray, live, love, pray. I don't know that one book, the live, love, pray thing. Pray, love, life, live, life, love, laugh. It's like that book, but without the praying and without like the love. It's just like live. It's about this woman who leaves her job in Tokyo to inherit the bread and breakfast that her grandfather left for her. And she discovers this bed and breakfast is actually a train station in the middle of nowhere, Hokkaido. Basically, the hotel is on the platform of the train, and they serve barbecue at night on the platform when all the trains have gone by. Like, it's the middle of nowhere. Like, a train comes like once every 3 hours. If you miss your train, you're screwed. But yeah, it's just that tale of like just the little incidents that happen when this woman first shows up to her new life. Turns out this is actually a series. There are like 2 more books, and I can see, because it's just quaint and it's adorable. And what's fascinating is that this place actually exists. This train station does exist in Hokkaido, and you can go visit and book a night stay and a barbecue. So yeah, that was cute. We read that. We read Omokage, which was the Akutagawa Prize nominee. This book was about, it was actually a very difficult book in terms of like topic. It's about this girl, this young girl who's like, and the relationship with her mother. And her mother is working in a massage parlor that provides sexual services. And it's this book that really like barely like it's on treacherous ground, and it really pushes the line between the adult world and the child's world. So it's interesting because you read the book and you're an adult and you know what's going on in the story, but this young girl doesn't, and she's trying to figure out what it is, or not even figure it out, but she's just experiencing it, and you know what she's experiencing, but she doesn't. And so it makes this really, really beautiful yet scary and like heart-wrenching story about this young girl who is in very, very dangerous territory. So this is Omokage, and I actually really, really enjoyed this. And then this book is the book I hated, absolutely hated, the worst book I've read in a very long time. Yoru no bake mono, At Night I Am a Monster. The most stereotypical story. It's so predictable. You know what the story is from the title. At night I am a monster. At day I am human. But actually it turns out when I am most human during the day is when I'm most monster-like, and when at night, when I'm a monster, I'm actually most human. It's a book about school bullying. I hated all the characters. I thought they all deserved to be bullied, and that's enough about that. Then we also read Colorful, which is another shonen, like, not shonen, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? What is the word I'm looking for? It's not coming to my mind, but puberty, adolescence, young boys, adolescence type book. This is about a young boy who commits suicide, and his body gets taken over by another person who is given the opportunity to relive his life if he can help this character, basically. So our man who takes over this character's body has to figure out why that character would want to commit suicide, and etc., etc. And all of this while figuring out why he died in the first place. Also highly predictable, but it's a very popular book in Japanese amongst like middle school students, and I can understand why. I can see that. I'm not the target demographic. And then after reading like 2 books about young boys and adolescents, I was kind of tired of that genre. But I can see why this is popular. I'm not the target demographic, but it is still quite good. So still recommended. And then, because we were tired of reading about young boys, we decided to read about older women, which was delightful. This is about 2 women who, and mostly about one woman as she goes from her late 30s all the way to her late 50s, and her friendship with her, her best friend, and how they deal with the idea that, they are single women, they are older single women, they're not going to have the traditional family, they're not going to have a husband, they're not going to have children, and instead they have to take care of their mothers who are, suffering from dementia and things like that. So it's the struggles of being an older single woman in Japanese society, and the expectations that are placed upon you, the sort of feeling of failure that you might have, and just wondering what's going to happen to you because, their mothers are falling to dementia, and they're able to take care of their mothers, but they're realizing that no one's going to be there to take care of them. So it's a lovely tale about 2 women in Japanese society, which I thought was really great. Then for the October spooky, Halloween book, we wanted something that really fit the season. So we read these 2 horror stories. One is The Toy Repairman, which fairly typical. For me, it was very predictable. Just from the title, I knew where it was going to go. It's well written, but still. The second story for me was a lot better. It's about these 2 men in a bar. One of them tells the other man, we were best friends. And the guy goes, what do you mean we were best friends? I have no idea who you are. And like, I would know who you were if we were best friends. It's like, no, you know who I am, and let me tell you why. And basically it's a story of these two friends. They were both in love with the same girl. The girl dies, and the drunk man in the bar tells our protagonist, you decided that you were going to bring her back to life, and so you decided to do research, and you discovered time travel. And he basically tells you, our protagonist, the horrors that you created by trying to bring this one back to life. And it was quite horrifying. It's not like horrifying, like scary, but like the idea is creepy. It's like, holy, yeah, like that's, wow, yeah, that's really bad, like that's horrible. So it's kind of like that story. So the second story was better than the main titular story, but we enjoyed this one. For our last book club book of the read of the year, we read花束は毒, which is bouquet is poison. It actually gives the title a bouquet and a venom. That is improper English, like Japan loves to do. But yeah, it's just a mystery book about this friend wants to help, runs into his old tutor back when he was in middle school, and the tutor is receiving threatening messages in terms of like how he should not marry this girl because it'll destroy their lives. And basically they hire a detective that the person who was once a student of this tutor had used this woman's services when he was in middle school, and she was just only like 2 grades higher than him. But he had used her services before, and he decides to use her services again to figure out who is sending these threatening messages. And the story is just about this. It's definitely a book that you are given all the information and you can actually figure it out yourself. I figured it out before the end of the book. Very proud of myself. But yeah, it makes it kind of predictable, but it is what it is. So those are the books that we read for the book club. And then I read one additional book calledむらさきのスカートの女, which is the woman in the purple skirt, has been translated into English. It is weird. It's a really weird book. It's about this the woman in the yellow cardigan who becomes obsessed with the woman in the purple skirt and decides to sort of insert herself into that woman's life and help this woman. And it just goes off the rails after that. It becomes really chaotic. So yeah, those are all the books that we read. And what I wanted to do this video is basically give you all the rankings according to all 3 members. We will give you the rankings of our preference for the books. And then I wanted to give you our idea of what we considered were the most difficult books and what were considered the easiest books. Now, I am including 2 more books in my ranking. Once again, because I read Murasaki no Sakato no Onna, I wanted to add this to the ranking. And then I am also adding our December read from the previous year because we just read one book that year. So I thought I would add that, The Influence, which I didn't even mention. Influence is basically about 2 girls who were once friends, and they get into a situation where they have to keep blackmailing each other. So actually pretty fun. But yeah, very interesting. And then I'm adding the first crush because the Japanese friend, even though we abandoned the book, he actually read it in its entirety. So he's the only one who read it, and it is in his ranking. So I am including that, even though it's not in all of our rankings. So let's start with my favorites. So ranking Tsumetome, followed by Unbalance, followed by Natsu no Niwa, followed by Eki ni Tomaro. Basically almost the order that I gave you. And then followed by Hagu to Nagara, followed by Omokage, followed by Murasaki no Sakato no Onna, followed by Hanataba wa Doku, followed by Influence, followed by Gangu Shurisha, followed by カラフル. And then last, the book I hate the most, 夜の化け物. Hated this book. So this is the order that I came up with, my favorite to least favorite. 夜の化け物, I really, really hated that book. That's just, it's not even like a least favorite, it's, I hated this book. Colorful up to like 花束は毒, like they're fine, like, you know, it was fine, generic, not super recommended, but I can see why people would like these books, at least for me. むらさきのスカートの女 up to 駅に泊まろう are like, I would actually recommend them. And then 夏の庭 to 爪と目, like I actually really enjoyed those, like I definitely do recommend them. But my favorite, like 夜の化け物, I hated it so much that's actually down here, and 爪と目, I actually liked it so much it's more higher than here. So like I have a definite favorite and a definite hated book. So that's my ranking. Now my friend, she ranked, she likes more like, what is she likes more like, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain, to be honest. I can't explain her taste. I really can't explain it that well. Like, yeah, I don't know, she does like the happy-go-lucky stuff for sure. She's definitely into that, but yeah, she likes happy-go-lucky. She definitely likes dark stuff as well, though. She likes, so her favorite was actually the Toy Maker. Toy Maker was her favorite, followed by Unbalanced. We both agreed with Unbalanced that it's a really good book. Then she liked The Friends, about the schoolboys. Then Omokage, which is the book about the young girls, not the young girls, the young girl and her mother. Followed by Tsumetome. Tsumetome was quite hard for her. It was the book that she said was the most difficult to read. So that probably made it harder for her to really get into the story. And then like there was like Hagu to Nagara, Eki ni Tomaro, which is the happy-go-lucky stuff, which I'm actually surprised she didn't like as much. But she did think they were a little bit more difficult, so that might explain it. And then the two like adolescent boys books, like we were all tired of those books. We were just not into them at all. So definitely lower on the ranking as well. So this is her ranking. And then my friend, he only really ranked 5. He liked First Crush the most, actually. Then he liked Hanataba wa Doku second. Then he liked Natsu ni Niwa third, The Friends. This one he was actually in love with. I was actually surprised he didn't rank it first. But he had originally read this as a library copy, and then he bought a copy for himself because he loved it so much. And then he liked Eki ni Tomaro next, which I was actually very surprised about too, because I thought it was just like a standard quaint little story. He liked this one. And yeah, so he gave his top 4 as these. And then he said all the others are pretty much the same ranking, but basically his explanation was he pretty much just ranked the ones that he read the most recently. So that was his very, very scientific deliberation on these. So yeah, that's all of our rankings. And for last, let's do difficulty level. Let me do a quick reshuffle of those. So difficulty level, I think I pretty much did it based off of grammar and ease of prose, rather than vocabulary. Because the thing about vocabulary is that your ability to read certain books over others when it comes to vocabulary is going to depend on your interests. So for example, I was reading a manga called Under Ninja this past year. And even though there isn't that much to it, I actually found it quite difficult. And the reason I found it quite difficult is the fact that I've never read or really watched anything about ninjas. So the whole idea of like infiltrating like an organization and all of the words that are like pretty much associated with that kind of stuff, I've never studied those words before, and I've never read those works before. So it makes it much more difficult to read versus, you know, for me, the Toy Maker has a lot of chemistry words because it talks about time traveling. It talks about the theory of relativity, you know, the theory of, you know, entropy and things like that. And some people will find those really hard, but that's my field of study. I've studied those things in English, so I'm familiar with the vocabulary in English. And the kanji is very easily describes that. So for me, I can understand that a lot easier than I can understand a book about ninjas. So ranking something based on vocabulary, I don't think is the best way to rank books when it comes to difficulty, because again, your vocabulary is going to depend on what your interests are. I am very familiar with the field of chemistry, so I can read those books a lot easier than I can read, you know, fantasy books. A fantasy book for me would probably be quite difficult just because I don't know all the words for like sword fighting and like magic and magic wands and things like that, while someone who maybe has read Harry Potter would find that very much easier to read. So that's a good example. So here's my difficulty level, if you can see it. So I ranked Tsumetome as the hardest, which it is. First, it has like no dialogue. It's all in this you, accusatory you point of view. And it's very much, because it's accusatory, it's very hard, it's very tough. And because of its a second person narrative, it's not like da 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 da, she said, da da da, he said, or like I did this, he did this. It's very, you came in and destroyed our etc., and you came in with your particular this and that. And because of that, it definitely makes it much more harder. There's not very much a strong plot that you can follow. It's just very much, I'm going to talk about what you did and how that changed our family. So I followed that by the Toy Maker. Now, I don't think the Toy Maker, objectively, the Toy Maker for me was not difficult to read, but I put it up there because I think objectively it is a harder read because of the whole theory of relativity, and because it is a very descriptive book. It describes things rather than give you like action. So I think that makes it really hard. Now the next one, I put Yoru no Bake Mono. This one I struggled to rank because the thing is, I hated this book so much that I did not want to read it. I did not want to focus on it. I hated the main protagonist's point of view and the way he spoke. And because he went back and forth, I was just like, make up your mind, and like you don't know what you're talking about, so it makes it feel like I don't know what you're talking about. So I actually struggled with that book. I thought it was hard in a weird way. It was like hard in a weird way that like I just really can't describe that well, to be honest, but I just did not like it. So I put it in third place because I just hated that book. Eki ni Tomaro is actually quite quaint and quite easy, but it does have a lot of like train vocabulary and things like that, which could make it more difficult. Hagu to Nagara, Unbalance, but like, yeah, Eki ni Tomaro, Hagu to Nagara, Unbalance are, I think, kind of they're pretty much all the same level. It's just going to depend on your comfort level with vocabulary. Trains versus traveling versus like more like domestic type vocabulary. That's where those go. But in terms of grammar, they're all pretty much on the same level. Then once we reach like bouquet is poison, Hanataba wa Doku, once we reach this level, we get into easy territory. These books down here are very easy to read. Hanataba wa Doku, The Friends, Colorful, Murasaki no Scato Onna, Omokage because it's in the perspective of a young elementary school student. Very easy to read, like an elementary school student who doesn't really know that much kanji, to be honest. So this was very easy to use. And Influence was the easiest book I've read ever in Japanese. Like this, if you need a introductory book to read in Japanese, like you want to start reading novels, this is a really good book. Influence, perfect book to read because it's very easy. All right. Next, let's do Heather's ranking. She ranked, let's see, these, and then this one, this, and this. She didn't read the Hanataba wa Doku. She didn't finish that book. She's still reading it right now, so it's not in the ranking. But she ended up ranking these. So Tsumetome, Unbalance, 玩具修理者、ハグとナガラ、夜の化け物、カラフル、駅に泊まろう、夏の庭、インフルエンス、and 面影 which I can totally see that. So she's a lower reading level than me, and so she's being probably less objective than I am, and she's definitely giving the difficulties based off of her reading abilities. When I asked her about Unbalanced, because I was quite surprised she ranked that one so high, she told me because it doesn't have that much dialogue, it was harder for her to read. But yeah, I think that's pretty much sounds about right for her. And then obviously I didn't ask my friend because he's a native Japanese speaker, so it doesn't matter what he thinks about the difficulty level of Japanese. They're all easy for him. So other than First Crush, he agreed that First Crush was was very difficult. And he understands why we abandoned that one. So yeah, there we go. Those are all of the books in Japanese that I read this past year. And then the rankings of difficulty and likes by everybody else. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'm very excited about 2023 and where the reading club will take us. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!